So if you thought I only read romance, you are incredibly wrong. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Charles from the channel Books on Stereo, and I'm here to talk about all the books that I read by Nicholas Eames. Now, if you don't know who Nicholas Eames is, he's the author of The Kings of the Wild and Bloody Rose, which are both high fantasy adult fantasy novels. I was about to say fantasy romance. These are not fantasy romance, they're fantasy novels. And so if you have watched any of these videos in the past, you know I'll go through all the books, give you my thoughts and my ratings, and then I'll give you kind of like overall thoughts and opinions about the author and whether I recommend it to you guys. So without further ado, let's get into the books. So up first we have Kings of the Wild, and this is book 1 in this series, and we basically follow a band of heroes that are kind of out of their prime. They kind of been retired for quite a bit of time. They moved on, they had kids, they kind of left their glory days behind them. And we follow our main point of view character, Clay. He has a family, he has a little girl that he actually adores, and his world is kind of upended when his old bandmate, Gabe, comes back into his life and asks him to help get back the band of guys together to help save his daughter, Rose. That's the setup for our story. So I absolutely love this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It takes a lot of the fantasy tropes and kind of twists them on its head and kind of pokes fun at a lot of the tropes that you see in a lot of fantasy novels. The whole tone of the book is very humorous. There is some high stakes that you definitely feel as you go along in the book, but it's incredibly funny. The humor always lands, and characters are so much fun, and each of the characters that makes up this band are all very distinct and all have their own issues and own backstories, which I really appreciated, and I really did enjoy these characters so much. Like, I absolutely love these characters, and I wish we got more books following these characters, but this is the only book that we have with these particular characters. Now let's talk a little bit about the plot of The Kings of the Wild. I really enjoyed the plot of this one. It's very much like how best I can compare it a little bit to like Rick Riordan's works. Not that there's always like some type of like quest or like some type of prophecy that needs to be solved, but it is a little bit more like the travel adventure type book. By that I mean they have their goal in mind. They're trying to save Gabe's daughter, Rose, and so as they're traveling, they go on a set of missions and have a bunch of like action and mishaps that kind of befall them as they're going throughout the plot. And yeah, the plot never has a dull moment. It constantly moves, and there's always new and fun things that are getting introduced that will keep you glued to the page. And that's a huge testament of Nicholas Eames' writing style. It is super easy, super digestible. The world building is very easy to kind of understand and kind of grasp your head around because it's not 100% a unique world. It is a little bit derivative and takes some type of riffs and licenses from other established fantasy worlds, but kind of remixes them and makes it into its own type of thing. So it feels familiar, but it definitely feels different. And overall, I really did enjoy this book, and I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. Now let's talk about Bloody Rose. Now in this one, this is a little bit more like kind of diving into like grimdark fantasy. If you are not familiar with the term, I'm not the person to best explain that to you, but it is a little bit darker in tone. It still has some humor in it, but overall the tone of this book is definitely quite darker. So this one we follow the Bard. I can't remember the Bard's character, but she's a female character, so we have a female heroine that kind of tells a story to the reader. And the reason why this is kind of funny that Nicholas Eames chose the Bard to center this next story around is because in the first book they usually make a joke about how the Bards usually die during these adventures and journeys. So like it's kind of funny that we get a reversal by that and have a story actually told from a Bard. And I really enjoy that character, and she kind of gets thrust into this band of women, including I think there's one male character in this band of females. And this band of, like, whatever, if you want to call this group of women, is led by Rose, who is the daughter of Gabe, who was a character in the first book. So that's how these two books are connected. I would have to say you do have to read book 1 and book 2 in order. But if you really want to read Bloody Rose before reading Kings of the Wild, you can do it, but it will spoil a lot of things, and there will be some things that you just won't understand if you haven't read the first book. Now for this one, I really enjoyed the plot of this one. I think This plot did a lot of really complex and nuanced things that will take me way too long to dissect and get into. But oh my goodness, the plot with this one was just another level. Like, I was shocked by how good the plot was in this one and how good the characters were in this one as well. Nicholas Eames already came out with like a pretty much perfect book with The Kings of the Wild, but Bloody Rose somehow manages to surpass perfection. Not to say I do see some readers having some issues with Bloody Rose, but on the whole, I think you will most likely agree with me that this book is even better than the first book. And I don't have anything else to comment on the world building because it's still very much the same. There is a little bit more information that you do get in this book that kind of adds to the world, but overall, this was an absolutely amazing read, and I gave this one another 5 out of 5 stars. So if it isn't apparent by now, I think it's pretty much safe to say that I really love Nicholas Eames' work. Coming as someone who's not a really heavy fantasy reader, I find his books really easy to get into and they're really quick pace, and you don't necessarily get bogged down with the dreaded info dumping that can come with a lot of fantasy worlds where the author just basically gives you like 10 pages full of info dumping to help set up the world before moving on to the actual story. So you don't get that in this book, and the characters and just the plot overall are just really fun and really engaging. It doesn't take itself necessarily way too seriously, and I find that really fun. It does a lot of really fun and unique things with the fantasy genre that I think a lot of non-fantasy readers can easily kind of gravitate towards and not feel overwhelmed. And I definitely feel like this is a great segue into adult fantasy if that's something that you're interested in diving into. So do I recommend this author to you guys? I do. Like, I give him my 100% stamp of approval. No caveats, no addendums, or none of those kind of other things, or qualifications if you want to call it that. But I think you guys will really enjoy this book, this author's work. There is supposed to be a third book, but details on the third book are a little bit scarce right now. But overall, I think you guys will really love this author. Even if you are a well-read fantasy reader or someone who's new to fantasy, I think either camps will find something that they really love in these books. So yeah, let me know down in the comment section down below if you have read any of these authors' books, and let me know if you liked it. Or if you haven't read this author's work, let me know if you're going to be picking up this author after my review of this author's work. And thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys with a brand new video. Peace.